Good evening and welcome to Gravitas. I'm Palki Sharma, Upadhyay. Let's get started. I'm going to spell out some names for you and you have to tell me what's common among them. Actor Fan Bingbing, Dr. Li Wenliang, Interpol chief Meng Hongwei, Alibaba founder Jack Ma, tennis player Peng Shuai. What's common among them? They're all famous people. They're all Chinese. And they all went missing when they upset the Communist Party of China. It has become a template. Beijing silences all protest at home. It scrubs off all reports. The world makes some token noises, then the story dies down. Months later, the person emerges. He or she denies anything went wrong. Some of them live to tell the tale. Some of them don't. And the message to Chinese citizens becomes clearer. Do not rub the state the wrong way. No law applies here. For far too long, China has got away with this. But now the tennis world is fighting back, threatening to pull tournaments out of China, even suffer losses of tens of millions of dollars. It's a lesson for world leaders. Tennis players today are venturing where they fear to tread. They're calling out China. On Gravitas tonight, we start and stay with the story of Peng Shuai, the one we started reporting on the day she spoke out. Also on the show, India has repealed its farm reforms in the face of unending protest. Is this a progressive move or politics defeating economics? We'll discuss that. Turkey's lira sinks to a record low after the central bank slashed interest rates despite warnings. What does it mean for President Erdogan and his dreams of a caliphate? Can Elon Musk end global hunger? He said he'll sell Tesla stock worth $6 billion. He asked for a plan from the United Nations. They've given one now. We'll see what happens next. And there's talk of Texit, the exit of Texas from the United States. You'd be surprised how strong secessionist elements are in some American states. We'll bring you a special report. We begin, as always, with Gravitas Global Headlines.
After weeks of border clashes with migrants, Belarus has moved thousands of migrants away from the Polish border. This as hundreds of Iraqis fly back to Iraq on the first repatriation flight since August. China has warned Lithuania to brace for consequences after allowing the Taiwan Representation Office to be opened in the country. In a significant diplomatic departure, Taiwan opened a de facto embassy in Lithuania, defying a pressure campaign by Beijing. Amid the fresh confrontation between Russia and the West, Russia tested a hypersonic missile. Russian President Vladimir Putin warned that the West was not taking Russia's warnings seriously enough. Nepal Lawyers Association warns of nationwide agitation following the lapse of its deadline for Chief Justice Rana to resign. Lawyers say since the government is not moving ahead with impeachment, they are left with no other option. At least 18,000 people are still stranded in Canada's British Columbia as authorities struggle to rescue them amid destroyed roads and bridges in what could be the costliest natural disaster in the country's history. Germany has announced new curbs for the unvaccinated, with plans to shut them out of restaurants, sporting events and cultural shows as the country battles a surge in COVID-19 cases. Large parts of the world witnessed the longest partial lunar eclipse since 1440. The eclipse, which resulted in almost the entire surface area of the moon reddening due to scattering of light, led to people describing it as the blood moon. Deforestation in the Amazon rainforest in Brazil rose 22% in the last 1 year, reaching the highest level in 15 years. Tim Paine has stepped down as captain of the Australian Test team after sexually explicit text messages that he sent to a female colleague 4 years ago became public. In an emotional press conference in Hobart, Paine revealed that he had been given a clean chit by a Cricket Australia probe, but did not feel his behavior met the standards of a captain. Pat Cummins is widely expected to be appointed the new skipper with less than 3 weeks to go for the start of the Ashes. Former South African captain Ab de Villiers has announced his retirement from all cricket at the age of 37. De Villiers had already retired from international duty in 2017, but had continued to play in T20 leagues. He joined the Indian Premier League in its first season in 2008 with Delhi, but became a legend over a 10-year stint with Bangalore. He has played the most IPL matches for an overseas player and scored the second most runs.
One of the biggest tennis stars of China, former world number 1 in doubles, a winner of the French Open and the Wimbledon. A powerful man sexually assaults a woman. His name is Zhang Gaoli, the former vice premier of China. I never consented that afternoon, crying all the time. The biggest Me Too scandal in China. Earlier, her Weibo account was hidden by the Chinese censors. Now Peng herself has gone missing.
I'm really sad about it.
Honestly, it's shocking,
Very strange situation.
We won't stop asking the question, where is Peng Shuai? 17 days and counting. Peng Shuai is still missing. We have been reporting on the story from day one. It's now a global campaign. Hashtag, where is Peng Shuai? It is trending the world over. It's a story we will keep reporting about until there is verifiable proof of her safety, until Beijing comes clean on her whereabouts. Because this is looking like a hostage situation now. Has one of the world's best tennis players been taken hostage by China? Yesterday, an attempt was made to kill the story with this sham email that China hoped to use to silence the world. It's on your screen. It was distributed by the Chinese state mouthpiece CGTN. No one else had it. There was no signature of Peng Shuai on this email, so-called email, no letterhead. This wasn't even an email. It was a screenshot presented as a retraction from Peng Shuai. No one believed it. Just before she disappeared, Peng Shuai made a big charge. She said that she had been sexually assaulted by this man, Zhang Gaoli, the former vice premier of China. Peng said Zhang forced her to have sex. He forced her into an abusive affair, one that lasted almost 10 years. Just after she made this revelation, Peng Shuai went missing. 2 weeks later, the Chinese state mouthpiece publishes what they call a retraction, saying, quote unquote, everything is fine, and the charges of sexual assault are untrue. Nobody is buying this story. In fact, it has backfired. International pressure is growing on China. The Women's Tennis Association, WTA, gave an ultimatum today. They want proof that Peng Shuai is safe, and they want an investigation into sexual assault charges. Else, they will pull out of China. I have a quote from Steve Simon. He's the head of the Women's Tennis Association, and this is what he says, quoting, "We are definitely willing to pull our business and deal with all the complications that come with it, because this is bigger than the business. Women need to be respected and not censored." That's what he said. We couldn't agree more. And we applaud the stand taken by the WTA, the Women's Tennis Association. At a time when world leaders are reluctant to take on China, this tennis association is fighting for Peng Shuai. They're willing to put her safety above business. The WTA is doing more than just talking. They're desperately trying to locate Peng themselves. The scale of their effort is massive. The WTA has been trying to get in touch with Peng since the 2nd of November, the day she put out that Weibo post narrating her ordeal, the day we started reporting the story. Here is Steve Simon again, and this is what he says. We have worked every method available to us. Voice, digital, tweeting, WeChat, WhatsApp, text. There are plenty of different messaging things that we all use and we are able to communicate with. And none of those have produced a result as of this point. When these efforts were being made, members from the Chinese Tennis Association reached out. They told the WTA that Peng is safe, but the WTA chief was not satisfied. He wanted to speak to Peng himself and to confirm her well-being. Here is another quote. I will remain worried until I'm able to speak with her or she speaks with somebody in our organization, whomever she's comfortable with, so that we can be assured that she's okay and where she's at. That's our number one priority. The other things are secondary. This was not an easy decision to make. This tennis association stands to lose millions if it pulls out of China. We'll tell you about that later on the show. The WTA stand has encouraged a lot of top players to also speak up. And this again very significant. Today, the biggest star in women's tennis extended her support. Serena Williams, she sent out this message, and I'm quoting again. I'm devastated and shocked to hear about the news of my peer, Peng Shuai. I hope she is safe and found as soon as possible. This must be investigated and we must not stay silent. Sending love to her and her family during this incredibly difficult time. Hashtag where is Peng Shuai? The next player to speak out was Andy Murray, a former world #1 in men's tennis. This is what he says. Female tennis player Peng Shuai whereabouts currently unknown after making sexual abuse allegations against Chinese government official. Hashtag where is Peng Shuai? Some players are going beyond social media posts. They're talking about Peng's disappearance during press conferences. Listen into two of them.
We are really sad about it, and we can't wait to hear some news from her that she's okay, and because what is happening is not normal. We would like actually to hear like a video from her or something, like a real proof that yes, that she's all right and everything is fine.
Give us real proof, they say. That's the message from the WTA and the players. Even they know that this email was a sham. So they're demanding video evidence. What will China do now? Will it release Peng Shuai? The Chinese Foreign Ministry is being quizzed every day on this, and the wolf warriors are struggling to respond. Today was no different. Wolf warrior-in-chief Zhao Lijian faced the press in Beijing. He was asked about Peng Shuai. You must listen to his response.
My answer is very simple. This is not a foreign affairs matter, and I am not aware of the relevant situation.
Another humiliating sidestep. For how long can China remain silent on this? For how long can it hide Peng Shuai? This is the biggest Me Too scandal in China and perhaps one of the biggest stories of this year. China's response is a familiar one. Cover up the scandal, silence the victim, protect the predator, in this case one of China's most powerful men, and pretend like nothing has happened. The Communist Party thought it will get away one more time. But by going after Peng Shuai, China has dug a bigger hole for itself. And you know, there was a time when you could buy silence, pay hush money, use cash to get away with crimes. Not anymore, not so easy. Today, the world is willing to put people over profit, conscience over cash, at least some of us are. I will stick to the case in point, the curious case of Chinese tennis star Peng Shuai. She's 35 years old. And she has vanished. Just like Chinese star Fan Bingbing had vanished. Just like the Wuhan doctor Li Wenliang had vanished. Just like the Interpol chief Meng Hongwei had vanished. Just like the Alibaba founder Jack Ma had vanished. Just like every person who offends China vanishes. Peng had dared to speak up. She raised a voice against Beijing's top brass. She named names, and now she is nowhere to be seen. No photos, no videos, no communication. China thinks it will get away with it, fabricate an email and sports wash the case. How? By hosting some games, bribing some big names and buying their silence. Basically, China thinks it will use its cash to end the conversation around Peng Shuai. I have bad news for them. China's checks won't be able to bail Beijing anymore. We told you how the Women's Tennis Association has given an ultimatum to China. Let me now show you just how much it is ready to risk, how much is at stake. China is an important business partner of the WTA. It hosted 9 tournaments in 2019. The total prize money on offer was $30.4 million. The WTA has numerous tournaments lined up in China between 2022 and 2030, basically the next 8 years. And there are 10 events scheduled in 2022 alone. 10 events. They're worth tens of millions of dollars. The WTA has already signed a deal with Chinese streaming platform for $120 million. That's a lot of money. And that's the kind of money the WTA is ready to risk. It is prepared to pull its tournaments out of China, incur losses for lives if it comes to that. The association knows it is caught in a crossroads. But as the WTA chief Steve Simon said, the case of Peng Shuai is bigger than the business. And he couldn't be more right. Another tennis association, the PTPA, or the Professional Tennis Players Association, has said that players must be prepared to take action if Peng's safety cannot be confirmed. The good news is, players already are. They're speaking out. Serena Williams, Billie Jean King, Chris Evert, Martina Navratilova, Naomi Osaka, the biggest names in tennis, have come together to ask #where is Peng Shuai? What you see on your screen is China failing to buy the silence of the world. And this image mirrors a lesson. Today, countries cannot sports wash. Countries cannot launder their reputation, host a World Cup or a Formula One event and expect the world to miraculously forget or forgive their human rights abuses. It does not work that way anymore. It shouldn't. I will give you another example. Qatar. It is the host of the 2022 World Cup, also a Grand Prix. But unlike what Qatar may have expected, it has not been able to silence the world by splurging on sports. Lewis Hamilton is in news today. He's a 7-time world champion and one of the most influential voices in Formula One. Hamilton has raised his voice against the Qatar Grand Prix, and this is what he said. There are issues in these places that we are going to. I do think that these sports, to go to these places, they're duty bound to raise awareness for these issues, and that these places need scrutiny, need the media to speak. Just FYI, Qatar is accused of exploiting migrant workers, denying basic human rights to the country's LGBT community, among many other things. Denmark recently qualified for the 2022 World Cup. The country's football association was quick to put out a statement and lodge its protest against Qatar. I'm going to read that out for you. This is what Denmark says of Qatar. The DBU said its 2 training kit sponsors would make way for messages critical of Qatar, which is hosting next year's tournament, and that it would minimize the number of trips to the country to avoid commercial activities that promote the World Cup hosts' events. More associations and committees need to follow suit. More bodies need to put people over profit, stand up against human rights abuses, rethink partnerships like these. By the way, where is the International Olympics Committee? Where is the IOC President, Thomas Bach? Why is he not threatening to cancel the Beijing Winter Olympics? The IOC says Olympic athletes are part of a family. And by that logic, one of their family members has gone missing. Shouldn't it have created a ruckus? The IOC says, once an Olympian, always an Olympian. Peng Shuai participated in the Olympics thrice, and now she is missing. Does the IOC care? The WTA is threatening to pull its tournaments out of China. What is stopping the IOC from cancelling the upcoming Beijing Olympics too? China is hiding Peng Shuai. It has blocked her accounts, blocked her from the rest of the world. China has imprisoned millions of men, women and children in Xinjiang. This is a rogue country. It is guilty of genocide. The IOC must show some guts and pull out of the genocide games. Countries must do the same. A diplomatic boycott won't do, I'm sorry, but US President Joe Biden's logic of not sending diplomats to the games does not make any difference whatsoever. If you want to protest, protest by not sending participants. If you want to make China pay, pull out of the genocide games. It's actually that simple. Here's another reason to pull out of the genocide games, the Wuhan virus. It's been 2 years. We get to hold China to account for this pandemic. We get to officially establish that the virus came from Wuhan. A few months back, a WHO team was tasked with probing the origins. It concluded that the first patient of the Wuhan virus had no links with the Huanan seafood market at all. Now, there's a new study that's come out, and it has rejected this claim. It says the World Health Organization's findings were flawed. Who then was the first patient? And will the WHO come clean? Here's a report.
Meet Michael Vorobey, a specialist in the origins of viral epidemics, one of the first proponents of the lab leak theory. He has now published a research paper in Science magazine, which links the Wuhan virus straight to the Huanan seafood market. As evidence, the scientist has provided a timeline of the first cases that weren't reported by the World Health Organization. In its investigation into the virus's origins, the WHO had concluded that the first patient was a 41-year-old accountant, who it claimed had allegedly been hospitalized on December 8, 2019, and had no clear link to the Huanan market. This case has been cited as evidence that the pandemic didn't start at the wet market. Michael Vorobey's research rejects that claim. He says the patient didn't become ill until late December, and that his December 8th hospitalization was a problem related to his teeth. The study states that, and I quote, "This is corroborated by hospital records and a scientific paper that reports his COVID-19 onset date as 16th December and the date of hospitalization as 22nd December. Then who was patient zero? Apparently a seafood vendor at the Huanan market who fell sick on the 11th of December 2019. The study further claims that most of the earliest cases were in close proximity to the market. This map tells you how it's based on the date of 174 cases in and around Wuhan. The red dots depict the addresses of cases which linked to the market. The blue dots represent patients with no link to the market. The latter are concentrated heavily around the market. The study says this is a sign that community transmission began from the market and later spread across Wuhan. What about the lab leak theory? This study hasn't ruled it out. Given how the market is located right next to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, the timing of this study is significant. It puts the onus on the WHO to come clean. The global health body has promised to send a new investigating team to Wuhan. Let's see if it agrees with the findings of this study. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
At 9 a.m. this morning, the Prime Minister of India addressed the nation, an address that took the country by surprise. He announced that the 3 farm reforms passed by the Indian Parliament 1 year ago will be repealed by the end of this month. The Prime Minister thanked those who supported the reforms and requested protesting farmers to return to their homes.
आज मैं आपको, पूरे देश को ये बताने आया हूं कि हमने 3 कृषि कानूनों को वापस लेने का, रिपील करने का निर्णय लिया है। इस महीने के अंत में शुरू होने जा रहे संसद सत्र में, इसी महीने में, हम 3 कृषि कानूनों को रिपील करने की संवैधानिक प्रक्रिया को पूरा कर देंगे। साथियों, मैं आज देशवासियों से क्षमा मांगते हुए सच्चे मन से और पवित्र हृदय से कहना चाहता हूं कि शायद हमारी तपस्या में ही कोई कमी रही होगी, जिसके कारण दिए के प्रकाश जैसा सत्य कुछ किसान भाइयों को हम समझा नहीं पाए।
For the uninitiated, the Indian government had introduced 3 farm reforms last year. They were aimed at promoting easier trade for farmers by regulating market practices in wholesale markets. The aim was to end the monopoly of middlemen and introduce private players to make the market more competitive. 3 bills were introduced. Number 1, the Farming, Produce, Trade and Commerce Bill, aimed at creating more trading opportunities outside the market. Number 2, the Farmers' Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Bill, to create a framework for agreements between a farmer and a buyer before production. And number 3, the Essential Commodities Bill, aimed at regulating the supply of certain food items in extraordinary circumstances. Farmer unions did not accept these reforms. They said they would leave them at the mercy of corporates. They demanded the creation of a minimum support price bill to ensure that corporates do not control the prices. The government resisted. This led to protests. Since November last year, Sikh farmers from the state of Punjab have led the protests and this farmers' agitation, along with farmers from Rajasthan, Haryana and parts of Uttar Pradesh. Most of them have camped around the borders of Delhi since November 2020. They've been protesting on highways leading to the national capital. These protests have often spilled into violence. For instance, on the 26th of January this year, when India marked its 72nd Republic Day, thousands of farmers drove into New Delhi on tractors. They damaged public property. They installed flags with Sikh symbols on the Red Fort. The government's response at that time was muted, to say the least. But it's suspected that the agitation had been infiltrated by Khalistani elements, a separatist movement that wants an independent Sikh state in India. This made many discredit the protests as a movement with vested interests, the handiwork of anti-India forces that were trying to spread unrest in the country. But the movement did not die down. The farmers stuck to their demands. Today, those demands have been met, and the timing is significant. This decision by the centre came on a day when the 20 million Sikhs of India were observing Guru Purab, the holiest day in Sikhism. So the timing of this gesture, as well as the Prime Minister's invocation of Guru Nanak, is being called an act of goodwill towards Sikh farmers, at least by union ministers. Not everybody agrees, though. The government's critics are calling it a spin, an electoral bait aimed at the Uttar Pradesh and Punjab assembly elections. Both these states will head to the polls next year, and the opinion polls do not look good for the BJP. So the charge is that the government is trying to secure its vote base through this decision, that it has prioritized political capital over policy credentials. If the reforms were supposed to be repealed eventually, why did the government wait for a whole year? That's the argument. Here's what I'll say. This decision is a defeat of reform. It's a victory of street politics and intimidation. It's a victory of the weaponization of diaspora politics. It's a victory of politics over economics. Farmers of 2 states have been able to undermine farmers of the rest of the country. Repealing reforms in a public address and attributing the repeal to protests will only embolden such acts in the future. It sets a dangerous precedent. Any law that gets passed in the future could be subjected to this template. Those who wish to spread misinformation about a law could incite violent elements and arm twist the government into taking the said law back. That's not how things should work in a democracy. Even now, there's no guarantee if the protests will die down. Many farmers say their agitation will continue. They want more guarantees. They say their struggle will not end. So my question is, how many times will the government capitulate to such street power? How many times will it retreat in the face of intimidation? Think about it. We'll turn to Turkey. And Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the country's president, also its biggest liability now. There are serious question marks over Erdogan's health. His foreign policy initiatives have led to Turkey's isolation, and the Turkish economy is reeling. Last month, Turkey was grey-listed by the FAT, the Financial Action Task Force. That's the global money laundering and terror financing watchdog. It put Turkey on the same list as Pakistan. Turkey was still recovering from that shock when this week it suffered a body blow. Its currency, the lira, collapsed. The lira had one of its worst days in 3 years. It slumped by 6 percentage points. On Thursday, the currency hit a record against the dollar, a record low. The lira is the worst performing currency in emerging markets this year. Who should Turkish citizens blame for this mess? Their president. The depreciation of the lira is a self-inflicted wound. Instead of appointing experts, President Erdogan chose to run Turkey's economy himself. He has fired 3 central bank chiefs in less than 2 years. Why has he done that? Because they were not listening to him. The result is there for the world to see. Turkey's monetary policy never stabilized. Since the beginning of 2021, the lira has lost 31% of its value against the dollar. The downward slide still continues. And whenever a currency falls in this fashion, inflation jumps. The case of Turkey is no different. Inflation has skyrocketed there. In October, it reached nearly 20%. Whether it's fuel or food, prices of all essentials have shot up. The people of Turkey are finding it hard to make ends meet.
For everything, we make calculations, we take notes, we do it together with my husband, we calculate everything. Otherwise, it would be impossible to get by.
We buy in small quantities. We don't have enough to do otherwise. There are many things we need here, but we can't buy them. There's salami, sausage. I'm human. I'd like to eat some, but I'm not going to lie. I cannot buy it.
That's the story of millions of Turkish citizens. For how long can Erdogan keep going? Just like the lira, his approval ratings are sliding. Last month, they dropped to less than 39%. The opposition smells blood. They're calling for an early election in Turkey. The leader of the main opposition party wants an election immediately. Another opposition leader says Erdogan has, quote-unquote, ruined our money and our reputation. These leaders are now working together to bring Erdogan down. The next presidential election in Turkey is in 2023. 6 opposition leaders have already joined hands. One of them is Ahmet Davutoglu, a former prime minister under President Erdogan. He left Erdogan's Justice and Development Party and he created his own political outfit. Another former minister of Erdogan is also gearing up to challenge him. His name is Ali Babakan. He served as finance minister under Erdogan. Just like Davutoglu, Babakan set up his own political outfit. These leaders are now working together to weaken Erdogan's grip on power. Turkey faces many challenges today. Its economy is at its weakest, inflation is high, it is diplomatically isolated from the West. There is public anger against the president. Erdogan is losing support. The man who set out to head an Islamic caliphate is now struggling to keep his empire. We'll keep tracking the story. For the moment, let's turn to America, where the Republicans are talking about breaking up the country. Breaking up the United States of America. Campaign in Texas is gaining momentum. It is called Texit, the exit of Texas from the U.S. Surprisingly, it's not just Texans who want to secede from the U.S. More citizens want to separate from the American Union. So is the United States breaking up? Here's a report.
In a democracy, political differences are common. But Republican lawmaker Ted Cruz is taking his fight with the Democrats to the next level. Cruz is very unhappy with the ruling party's legislative agenda. So much so that he is talking about succession. Cruz wants his home state of Texas to split from America if the Republicans fail to have their way.
We also saw a group of children.
Cruz told this to students in Texas last month. If they pack the Supreme Court, if they make DC a state, if they federalize elections and massively expand voter fraud, there may come a point where it's hopeless. This wasn't just a political statement. Ted Cruz is serious about Texit, the exit of Texas from the US. And he wants Texans to consider it too. Cruz even has some ideas about what Texas could take from America. If Texas splits, Cruz wants the state to take NASA, the military, and America's oil supply. And Cruz isn't the one who came up with the idea of succession. He is just echoing a demand from thousands of Texans. A political campaign has been brewing in the state. It is called the Texas Nationalist Movement. The campaign has more than 400,000 supporters. What is their mission? A statewide referendum on the succession of Texas. In fact, the group is pushing for a vote next year itself, during the 2022 midterm elections. They aren't the only ones calling for a breakup of the US. Earlier this year, a poll came out with some shocking findings. 37% of Americans are willing to split from the United States. The support for succession is highest in the South. 44% of American citizens here want to succeed. Who are these citizens who want to break up America? Most of them are Republican supporters. 66% of them in Southern America advocate a split. Almost half of the independent voters in the region back them. Voices backing succession are still in the minority in the US. But they are too big to be ignored. 21st century America looks increasingly like a divided nation. These divisions were only made worse during the Trump years. 52% of the voters who backed Donald Trump say the Republican state should split from the Union. They want to create their own separate country. Joe Biden rose to power with the promise to heal those divisions. The US president must act fast, because the future of the American Union is now at stake. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Have you ever played bluff? It's nice and good as long as your cards go unnoticed. The moment your bluff is called, it's game over. Something similar just happened to Tesla CEO Elon Musk. Not too long ago, he dared the United Nations World Food Programme. Elon Musk said he will sell Tesla shares right away and give $6 billion to the United Nations, provided the organization can show him how his money can end global hunger. Musk thought he would get away with this open challenge. A week passed, then another, and then the UN actually came up with a plan. And just like Musk had demanded, the plan was an open source accounting. It was out there for everyone to see. Here it is on the World Food Programme's website, a breakdown of how the $6 billion would be used. $3.5 billion for food and its delivery, $2 billion for cash and food vouchers, $700 million for country-specific costs, and $400 million for management, administration and accountability. And here is the full plan. The question is, will Elon Musk click on this link? Will he now take up his part of the challenge? Will Musk play fair? Or was this whole challenge one of Musk's many practical jokes? He, after all, is a repeat offender here. Just earlier this month, Elon Musk started a Twitter poll. You might remember this. He asked his followers whether or not he should sell 10% of his Tesla stock. The majority said yes, so Musk sold $5 billion in Tesla stock. What he did not tell his Twitter followers was that he had already decided to sell the stocks. Reports say the decision was taken as early as September, so the billionaire was basically bluffing. He seems to like these stunts. He likes publicity, starting a buzz, staying in the spotlight, and he's ready to pay whatever it takes for this attention. In 2018, Elon Musk sent his convertible Tesla car to space. The vehicle was worth $100,000. As we speak, the car is cruising around in the solar system, and Musk is marveling in its glory. Also in 2018, Elon Musk said he had made a mini submarine. What for? To rescue the children stuck in a Thai cave. Remember that accident in Thailand? That sub never worked. But Musk worked his way to the headlines. He showed off the mini sub, and he called a British driver a pedophile. 2 years later, Musk named his child like a puzzle. Again, he successfully became the talk of the town. In 2020, when the world was busy talking about the Wuhan virus, Elon Musk piggybacked his way to spotlight. How did he do that? The Tesla CEO unveiled a pig. He said that he had implanted the pig's brain with a small computer. Was there any reliable data to support this? There was none. And if you think all of this is crazy, wait till I show you how Elon Musk often treats his Tesla stocks like a joyride. The Tesla CEO once tweeted that Tesla stock prices were too high, the shares slumped 10%. Musk also tweeted about considering taking Tesla private. The shares jumped 11%. Musk had to pay $20 million to settle fraud charges and stepped down as Tesla chairman for 3 years. The man was unapologetic. After all, he'd got his day in the sun. On April Fool's Day in 2018, Elon Musk declared that Tesla is bankrupt. Stocks fell 8.1% again. Musk was far from unhappy. Like I said, Elon Musk enjoys these theatrics, daring organizations, calling strangers pedophiles. It's all part of Musk's PR playbook. Elon Musk needs attention, perhaps as much as he needs oxygen. This man is as much a showman as he's a businessman. So we're back to where we started. Elon Musk's challenge to the World Food Programme. Will he really sell the Tesla shares now that the UN has shown him a plan? Here's an idea. Let's share this story with Elon Musk, tag him, and wait for an answer from the horse's mouth. On that note, it's a wrap. We're leaving you with Gravitas images. Have a good weekend. We'll see you on Monday.